by millions of Texans. The chair calls Brian Guthrie. Yes. Okay. Thank you for being here today. We show you registered as Brian Guthrie on behalf of Teacher Retirement System of Texas, and that you will be testifying neutrally. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members. It's a pleasure to be here and to tell you a little bit about the Teacher Retirement System and what we do. My name is, as was stated, Brian Guthrie. I'm the Executive Director of the Teacher Retirement System and have been in that position since 2011. I have a few prepared remarks and then would be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. If you look at slide 2 of my presentation, it's an overview of TRS and what we do. The first bullet is perhaps the most important in terms of defining our agency's responsibilities. We are somewhat unique in that we manage 3 trust funds, and those trust funds are for the exclusive use and benefit of the members for whom they serve. We have a fiduciary duty to those trust funds to be very judicious and thoughtful in the way that we spend money out of those funds, because again, they are for the exclusive benefit of the members for whom they benefit. We have a pension trust fund. That is by far our largest fund, and that is the fund that pays out retirement benefits. We have over 2 million members total in our system. Of that total, about 500,000 are retirees. And so the pension fund provides annuity benefits to those annuitants on a monthly basis. We reached a milestone recently in which we pay out over $1 billion in benefits a month. That is a significant milestone. It's also very important for our members because most of our members as teachers work in districts that do not participate in the Social Security program. And as a result of that, the only retirement benefit that they receive is from us. And so we take that responsibility very seriously and deliver the benefits as best we can. The total trust fund value, to give you some context currently, is just above $210 billion. It took a bit of a hit the past couple of days, but has now since rebounded. The whole year has been quite volatile in terms of the marketplace. We experience that sometimes, but we are not in the business of looking at one-year profits or one-year returns. We are in the business of looking at long-term returns. And so over the long term, we are responsible for earning an average rate of return of 7% on our trust. And we have been able to do that over the 1, 5, 10, and 20-year periods that we measure. In addition to the pension trust fund, we also manage 2 healthcare programs. We manage a healthcare program for our retirees. That's called TRS Care. And then we also have a TRS Active Care program, which you might guess is for our active teachers. The one difference with the Active Care program that's somewhat unique is that the funding for that program doesn't flow directly to us. It actually flows through the school finance formula, because there are some school districts, primarily large school districts in the state, that do not participate in active care. For example, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, they have their own healthcare programs and do not participate in active care. As I mentioned, we as fiduciaries of those funds have a responsibility to constantly look for efficiencies and constantly look for ways of delivering benefits that are meaningful to our members while also doing so in a cost-effective manner. So in my time as executive director and prior to that, this agency has had a culture of continuous improvement. We are always looking for ways to either derive better investment returns or to deliver better benefits at a lower cost. We have been, I think, successful in that. There is some groups that will measure the cost of providing benefits per member across different retirement systems in the country. And based upon that metric, our average cost per member is about $62 a year to provide the benefits that we do. By comparison, most of our peers are over $100 per member in delivering those benefits. So overall, we do have a goal of striving to continue to look for ways to improve. Obviously, there's always opportunity to do things better, but I do believe that is constantly at our focus. The other unique aspect of us as a government agency, I have to say, is that we have two disparate functions. One is much more of a standard or traditional government operation in delivering benefits. Answering member questions, being responsive, being communicative, and being helpful in that regard. But then we also have a goal of earning money and being able to earn that return over time. So we are a professional investment management organization at the same time. And so with that in mind, we are constantly looking for ways to better deliver those benefits as well and be better efficiencies on the investment side so that we can deliver those returns. If you turn to slide 3, there's just a quick snapshot of some of the things that we've been working on over the past couple of biennia. Back in 2018 and 2019, we identified a significant problem in our customer service delivery. Our system was outdated. You talked earlier about 30, 40-year systems. Our pension trust fund, when I took over in 2011, was still on a mainframe. It still is today, but we are nearly done with that transformation process. It is something that we have taken up over a long period of time to improve our benefits and to also improve services to members in the way that they expect to receive it, either on being able to log on to a website or log on to an app and be able to get their benefits from their phone. That's the ultimate goal of these changes. It's also to get off of the mainframe, which, as you heard from DIR earlier, those types of systems are much more harder to protect from the bad actors in the world than some of the more modern systems are. So we started that significant customer service improvement initiative back in 2018 and 19. At the same time, we also undertook an opportunity to enhance our investment competitive advantages by bringing more talent in-house. We have traditionally relied upon external managers to do much of the investing for us. But over time, we have changed the ratio of that. So now today, we have about 50% of our fund that's managed externally and 50% of it that's managed internally. That internal management is key for us and very important for us because it delivers added value. There is always the risk, or there's always perhaps people will think, well, why don't you just invest passively in some of these things and not have as many people as you do? And our response to that is by having active management, we deliver alpha, is what the term of art is, which is additional returns over and above what you normally would receive. And so we underwent both of those activities starting in 2018 and 19. We've continued that over the past couple of biennia. We worked with the Sunset Commission, in fact, in 2021 on improving our customer service as well. I'm pleased to say that where we find ourselves today is in a much stronger position. We were facing at one point hold times of over 30 minutes for our members, which is totally unacceptable. Now we answer all of our calls within 3 minutes, and most of the calls are answered within 30 seconds. In addition to that, we have also greatly enhanced our ability to manage the trust internally and to deliver those investment returns that I've mentioned before. Last year, we had a return of 12.83%. As I mentioned, our goal is 7, and over time, we have been able to deliver well above that 7 over the long term. But now that we've grown, and now that we have added those additional resources, we find ourselves in a new position. And so for the past 3 years, we have really been focused on efficiency. And by that I mean we are looking, when you grow and when you right size to the extent that we did, we need to look at, did we grow appropriately, and are there systems and things in place that need to be changed as a result of our growth? And so that's what we are looking at now. We welcome the opportunity to continue to work with you on many of these as moving forward. But one thing that I will mention is that we have made a concerted effort to insource our talent. As I mentioned, We've tried to eliminate unnecessary contracts. We have also eliminated lease space. We have purchased new headquarters outside of the downtown area. We will move into those headquarters actually later this year, which overall will save the members a significant amount of money over the long term. But in addition to that, will make it much more easier for them to access us because we got a lot of complaints for them having to come all the way to downtown Austin to meet with us. We also, if you turn to the next page, as I mentioned, we manage 2 healthcare programs. And so we manage those healthcare programs as efficiently as possible. Now, it goes without saying that the healthcare crisis in this country and the issues that face the healthcare system go far beyond Texas and the teacher retirement system. But we do our best to manage it as we can. And we are a large player and a large purchaser of healthcare in this state. And so as a result, we have a lot of ability to negotiate contracts and to manage savings to the extent that we can. Just a couple of examples with what we have done.
Hey, thank you. I'm going to slow you down for a sec because I want to catch you while you're talking about healthcare.
Okay.
So you said that it's a pretty large healthcare network that you're managing. Is that what I heard?
Yes, sir.
So I've often wanted to ask this question. This is the perfect place for it. Could we find efficiency in potentially combining ERS with TRS care and having a larger pool, significantly larger pool, to decrease the cost for those individuals that are in education?
That is an excellent question, sir, and it is one that we have discussed a lot internally, and we've discussed with ERS. We believe that based upon the size of the ERS population, which is about 200,000, 250,000 plus, I don't know the exact number, Porter will be able to tell you, they've already reached a level of efficiency in terms of purchasing power that they would not necessarily benefit greatly from joining us, which if you look at our programs, we manage 2 separate ones. One is for 200,000 individuals for retirees, and one is for about 400,000 active professionals. Once you reach a certain size, and I don't know what the delta is it 100,000, is it 150,000? Once you reach a certain point, there's not necessarily a benefit to getting even bigger. Now, one thing that we do, and that we work very closely on is we talk to each other all the time. We are constantly, each system is going out for bid to look at what are the newest innovations, what are the newest cost-saving ideas that are out there. And there are companies that will come to us and will give us their best price. And when they give us a best price, ERS will turn around and work with them too, and vice versa. So there's constantly that give and take.
So what's the delta on, and you may not know the answer, men and women in each one? Because I understand women's health care is a little bit higher. From what I understand, it can be a little more expensive.
Yes.
Do teachers have more women and ERS have more men, or how is that demographic? Do you know?
I do not know the demographic breakdown of the ERS system. I think it's approximately 50-50, but again, I'll let Porter answer that question. We have more women than men. I don't have the exact number, but it's usually about a 60-40 ratio of women to men in our system.
So am I hearing that there's very possibly no efficiency in trying to combine them?
I'm not saying there's no efficiency. I'm not just sure that for the effort that it would take to sort of unwind the funding mechanisms for the 2 systems and to match up the populations, that it would yield the type of return that you might want to be hoping to achieve. But any efficiencies
that's what I was going to say. Any efficiency, because I think what we're planning on doing is long-term change. So if it was worth the work up front, and it saved these individuals money, I think it would indeed be worth it. Maybe not right up front,
sure,
but long term it would. Because one of the biggest things that I get complaints about from retired teachers and teachers is their health care and the cost of it.
Totally understand, and that is not something that we have looked at recently. I mean that the last 2 years, and so probably it's worth revisiting at this point again.
Well, I mean, you'd go from 200,000 or 400,000 to 800,000. I couldn't see how, if I were an insurance company, potentially providing coverage, a guaranteed 800,000 people versus 200. I would think that I would probably give you a better deal. So enough said. As long as you
Sure.
know, I think we should be looking at that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I
Thanks.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So that really, I think that's a good place to stop.
Sounds good.
That concludes my prepared remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but we look forward to the engagement.
How about Representative King? Go ahead, Representative.
We got it. Let's talk about our the real estate expansion. So I understand. I looked through this. The TRS new headquarters mid 2025. Your questions answered. So I understand in 2020, TRS signed some multi-year lease for some fancy office space. It cost some $326,000 a month. And I understand you'll try to sublease it and then get sold. I guess then made $188 million off of it. I guess it paid some of it off, but by it being empty and not used, how much did that cost?
So let me explain the narrative. You are correct that we had an issue, and this is actually an excellent example of perhaps the Public Information Act gone awry. But we were in a position where starting back in 2015, we ran out of space for our investment team. And so we started leasing space in downtown Austin at a location on Congress Avenue at a reasonable price. And we were in that space for about 7 years, or 5 years, until this 2020 issue came up. What came up in 2020 was an opportunity to renegotiate that lease where they were going to charge us higher fees and higher rent, and we were looking for an alternative. What we had at the time was an investment in the Indeed Tower. And as a significant investor in that property, we thought there was an opportunity for us to lease space and basically pay rent to ourselves. I mean, it's not the ideal outcome. In fact, I think the ideal situation is what we have now, where we own both of our buildings and the people who work there are all TRS, and it's very clean. But given the nature of that endeavor at the time, there was a decision made to let's go ahead and lease the space in the Indeed Tower. It became a public relations nightmare because we could not explain the piece about us owning the building. I was prevented from disclosing that. I was able to eventually disclose it to this committee, to committees like this and to other legislative entities, but it was a very difficult endeavor. Now, there's a good reason for the protections in law to be in place. Basically, for any private equity investment, private equity investors will not do business with entities like TRS or ERS or any other public investment fund if they have certain disclosures that are required. As a result of that, there was legislation passed back in 2008 or 2009 which prevents us from disclosing certain information about the nature of those investments. What's unique about that, or what's problematic, and at least from my perspective, when that whole affair occurred, is that I was willing to disclose the information, and so was the entity that we were invested in, but still the law prevented us from doing it. We went to the Attorney General, we sought an opinion, we were shot down. So I was basically prevented from revealing that information.
Mr. Guthrie, at any point are you going to tell me how much money the agency lost or spent that it didn't need to spend?
So I would say none. The answer is zero, sir, because we canceled what we ultimately decided to do. We sold the Indeed Tower. We got out of that lease. So we never occupied the space. There was never any unoccupied space. It was still being built out when we sold it. We sold it as an investment. We sold it for a significant profit.
Okay.
We also, working with the Teacher Retirement System Board, came up with a plan to purchase new facilities.
Yeah. Can I ask you about those, sir?
Yes.
That's where we're headed. And I've got some that's going to come up in 2025, and it's going to be outside of downtown Austin with the idea that it'd be accessible to your membership. Is there any reason y'all didn't look even further outside of Austin? Look in Waco or Huntsville or Houston, Arlington.
So we worked with our real estate group as well as outside vendors to look at opportunities within the greater Austin
So
area.
was there ever a consideration of not being in the greater Austin area?
Not seriously.
Okay.
No.
Because I understand, I mean, virtually, okay, maybe you don't want to live there, but other people could, which leads me to the next question. How many people are still working from home?
So it varies by division.
How many people are still working from home? We have an idea, just a total number, regardless of division.
I'd say probably about half to three quarters. We'll have at
Yeah.
least 1 or 2 days working from home.
How much square footage did y'all have in the prior building?
In the current building, we had about 200,000 square feet. We're going to have about 350,000 square feet in the new facility, and that was square footage is based upon a generational solution for the agency.
Okay.
Something we can occupy for the next 30, 40, 50 years.
Something here says the new headquarters will include a larger member experience center.
Yes, sir.
What is that?
So right now, when a member comes to TRS, they will enter on the first floor. They will meet with a counselor. Perhaps if they have healthcare questions, they will have to go meet with a different counselor. They have to go to a different floor. We have things sort of spread out, moving all around. Okay. What we have envisioned with the new facility is a member will have a one-stop shop for benefits. When members come to our system to retire, it is an event. It is an exciting opportunity for them. It is a change of life for them. They look forward to it, and we want to make that.
That's neat. I'd love that for the private sector. My question, though, is then you are wanting to do regional offices. You got one in El Paso. You want to do more regional offices, but you want to do this mega thing in Austin. Look, the bottom line is I don't know why you want all the bureaucrats in one city. I'd love to spread them out and have normal people that live in places like Tyler and not Austin bureaucrats. Started the Austin bureaucrats. The next one, though, is, I may let you go, man. I'm just, sir. I'm just concerned about the expense on this real estate. We're looking at how to be more efficient, and I don't understand why we got people still working from home, but we're going to quadruple our space, hoping to sublease things when commercial property is on the downturn, and it's tough to even fill those spots. Still trying to figure out how we're going to do it, guys. That's all. I'll pass.
Vice Chair Bajani.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. I really appreciate your work and the investment that you do for TRS. I came across some comments mentioning foreign travel conducted by the agency. And I know that we invest funds worldwide.
Yes.
But could you please provide some insight on that?
Sure. Thank you, sir, for the question. So as I mentioned, we are a $210 billion approximately trust fund. We make investments globally. About $60 billion of our investments are overseas. And so as a result, we do have foreign travel expenses. Just like anything that you're investing in, you want to be able to kick the tires. You want to be able to look the person that you're investing with in the eye, make sure that they have efficient operations. And so we will send staff to visit with these prospective investors and to make sure that what we're investing in is worthwhile. In some cases, it's not. In other cases, we develop a relationship in which we have generate substantial returns for the members. And even though you look at that and it's like $1.5 million in travel, and it's like, wow, that seems like a lot, and it is. But relative to the amount of benefit that we provide to the trust as a result, the alpha that we generate by having that active management and by actually looking at these things rather than just blindly investing in them has returned an alpha of about $360 million last year.
Got one more question. I also noticed that there is significant budget allocation to outside accounting for more expenses. Would you be able to clarify what that includes?
Yes, thank you. And so, we visited with the comptroller about this, and we agree that perhaps it's time to look at some of the categories of expenditures that are in the CAP system that you have to report, and to make sure that it's very clear what exactly those services are for. So that the accounting services that you're referencing are actually our actuarial services. We are required by statute to have a contract with an external actuary. That is the individual who tells us on an annual basis whether the fund is actuarially sound. They will also, during the legislative session that we're currently in, will provide cost estimates for any potential legislation that could have an impact on the pension fund, either positive or negative. So the services that those individuals provide are invaluable. In addition to that, they help us model long-term what our assumption set is when we're looking at the long-term health of the fund. As I said before, we're in the forever business, and so as a result of that, we have to look at trends over time in terms of population, how much is payroll going to grow, how many members are going to retire and when, how long will those members live once they retire, all of those key attributes, and the actuary that we employ helps us with that, and we do that review, it's called an experience study, every 4 years.
Thank you so much, Ms. Guthrie.
Representative Rodriguez-Ramos.
Going back to what you were saying about the study, and I have noted here that SB 2 warns that fewer public school teachers would pay into TRS were it to pass the voucher program, the voucher plan. Could you speak a little bit about that? So, I mean, assuming we'd have private entities, there'd be individuals who are not going to be part of TRS, and so then you have less members in. How
Sure.
does that work?
So, thank you for the question, and I've been getting this question quite a bit, honestly, through in a variety of committees. When we did the cost estimate for Senate Bill 2, we provided an analysis of the impact, but then we were also asked to provide a hypothetical analysis of what could cause the pension fund to have a negative impact as a result of this. And so the numbers that you saw that related to us either increasing our funding period by 7 years and not becoming actuarially sound was a hypothetical exercise that contemplated the teacher population or the active member population reducing 1% per year on a persistent basis. That is not the reality of what we see happening currently in the state or what we foresee happening based upon the estimates for Senate Bill 2. Senate Bill 2 envisions that school children will leave public schools and move into either private schools or homeschooling. The numbers that we've received suggest that number in the first year is about 14,000 students. It could go up to about 100,000 students after about 5 years. So if you take that and assume, you have to make an assumption at that point. You don't assume that necessarily for every one child that leaves, you'll lose one active member. That's not a realistic assumption. A more conservative assumption, probably still not realistic, is one that we used, which is perhaps for every 10 students, one individual will leave. At the levels envisioned by Senate Bill 2, if we lose a total of 10,000 active employees over that period of time, it will have a negligible impact on the fund. So therefore, our analysis shows, based upon the numbers that we've received, that Senate Bill 2 would not have a negative impact on the pension fund.
Up to how many students? I mean, if the original estimate is 10,000, at what point will you see that there is going to be there would be an impact at what threshold? Because obviously there has to be an impact ultimately if you're going to have fewer people in there.
And so that was the indirectly the purpose of the hypothetical exercise, which said if you have a 1% reduction in active member participation over time, in order for that to be realized, you'd need to bleed or lose about 15,000 members a year over a significant period of time, which, based upon the numbers of students that are envisioned by Senate Bill 2, we just don't see the connection.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So on that, there's obviously different factors in terms of whether the fund is going to be stable or not. So what are the number of students, over the last 5 years, let's say, in terms of the number of students that are enrolled?
So I don't have the specific enrollment number off the
roughly,
top
is it
of my head.
growing?
It is actually, this is the interesting part of this. Student enrollment has actually stayed pretty constant. I dipped a little bit after COVID. It came back up. It's been pretty stable, and I think that Commissioner Morath can speak more to that, and he's spoken to that in other committees. What we've actually seen, though, in terms of our employers that we work with, which are the school districts and charter schools and so forth, is that there's actually been a growth in the number of active teachers and active members. We dipped after COVID, just like everyone did, but then we came back. And over the last 10 years, we've actually experienced a growth of about 1 to 2% of membership a year. And that continues. So we're not sure, how to really correlate that with what's happening but all we can do is report on what the
So
numbers of members in
students
our
has been
system.
roughly the same, but the number of employees has gone up.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Representative Curry.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming here and doing this. And I'm going to ask a few random questions. I mean, I'll be happy to spend time with you one-on-one about some various different things.
Of course.
A few of these are really going to be more geared towards bringing a few things out with my colleagues here as well. I do think that, I do want to get into the expense ratio just a little bit. The average expense ratio in the United States is about 0.43%. You're saying you're running about 0.2%. Does that include the management fees? Or do you report the management fees that you pay as well? In other words, you
Yes.
have your managed. Let me kind of finish the question.
Sure.
But you have your managed funds, right? Which can be a variety of things, including private equity, and so on and so forth. And then you also have money invested in lots of funds that have management fees on them.
Yes.
And do you include that in your 0.2%?
So the 0.2% is the delivery of the benefits. On the cost basis side, on the investment side, we have similar metrics, but yes, it is included. That cost basis is included. We also report those fees in our annual financial report. And all of the returns that I provide to this body or to any other committee that is interested in our returns, those are always net of fees and expenses.
Yeah, I know. I realize that, but your 0.2% is your. So you're saying that you do include the other fees in that number.
Yes.
But you're spreading it across the health insurance piece as well.
Yes, and so we
So
have
on just the investment piece, what's that number?
So I don't have just the investment piece number. I don't have that handy. But
Okay,
I can
that's
certainly
fair.
get that
That's
to you.
fair. We didn't ask for it either. I'd like to have it if you don't mind.
Of course.
I mean, and we can talk about that as well. So, kind of with that, when you're negotiating fees, so I'm going to go back to your private manager, your managed money sources as well as your private equity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you utilize most favored nation clauses to make sure that we pay the lowest fee of anybody they ever charge their fee to?
We can't always guarantee we pay the lowest fee ever, but we do our best to work actively with those managers and to make sure that we get the best possible deal. We aren't always privy. This is another, there's an opaqueness to the financial sector. We don't always know what other fees may be, but we know what we think they are, and we negotiate based upon those. And to the extent that we and other fund managers, particularly in the pension space, talk to each other, we know. And so we work very closely to make sure that we get as good of a deal as, say, the CalSTRS of the world or the CalPERS of the world, because we're just as big and just as important.
Okay, so I guess I'm probably taking this from the angle of again, government efficiency and the efficiency in making sure that we get the best bang for our buck. Which by the way, I'm not targeting you on this whatsoever.
Sure.
I'm suggesting though that I invest in a lot of different things, and I do actually can get some most favored nation clauses where on some of them where they can't charge someone else less than they do me. And if they do, they drop my fee. And I would think, that's a pretty standard legal clause. I'm not a lawyer, but I've certainly negotiated a lot of contracts. Mm-hmm. And I would think that from an efficiency standpoint, you may want to look at that.
Absolutely.
Because you have the power with the size that you invest. And I've spent a fair amount of time on Wall Street in New York, had offices there, and I can just tell you, I know dang well everybody in New York and mostly all over the world chases the teacher retirement system to try to get y'all to invest in things. And so you have the power to do it.
Yes, sir.
And I would suggest that would be something that would go high on the list. So when you're evaluating efficiency, I'm going to 3 different quick subjects, but I'm going back to the question that the Vice Chairman asked about the foreign travel.
right? And I think that there's always confusion over foreign travel and how many people are going and what's the actual purpose? Is it a
Sure.
real purpose? If we're all going to Paris and we're going to stay an extra 5 days or whatever because we're going to see 3 extra companies that we'll probably never invest in. And I'm using that as I don't know, I have a specific example,
I
so
totally
please don't take
understand.
it as such. But do you personally approve those trips?
Yes, sir, I do.
Every single one of them?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the number of people that are on them?
Yes, and so we have travel guidelines that we ask teams to follow. They have to provide a justification for why they're going. They just can't go, like you say, to spend 5 extra days and meet with 3 managers. They're going there for a specific purpose, for a specific investment, for a specific deal, or for a specific conference in which they could meet perhaps 5 or 6 different entities over a 2 or 3 day period that we would potentially be investing in.
And then when those expense reports come back, do you sign them?
The actual expense reports,
Do
no,
they come up to your level to sign?
they do not. They go to the CFO.
Okay, all right, fair enough. You made a comment, and 2 more points, but you made a comment about the Social Security exceptions that are out there, and this is just a point of reference for me. So that exemption is done district by school district by school district?
Well, it was an opportunity in the late 80s, or the early 80s, and that many local units of government were given the opportunity to either opt into the Social Security program at that time or to stay out. And most, and this is actually not just a Texas issue, it's an issue in most southern states. Most school districts in southern states opted not to participate in Social Security at that time, and so they never have. Only a handful of districts in Texas do, like Austin ISD, for example, does. But they're the exception rather than the rule.
So to clarify this point, if I am an employee of a company for 10 years before I become a teacher, and I've paid into Social Security and I've done my job there, and then I go become a teacher and then retire from the teacher retirement system, do I get any Social Security, or I'm excluded from what I've already paid in?
It's going to be unique to each individual, but in most cases, you're either not going to receive your full benefit or no benefit. It depends on how much you paid in during that 10-year period relative to the rest of your career, but generally, you will not receive a benefit. Now, I will say that was the case as of December 31st. There was a surprise law change at the federal level that happened in December, in which that situation you just described would no longer penalize the retiree. So when they retire, they would actually receive the 10 years that they paid into Social Security and whatever their annuity is as a result of that.
So do you have a set of instructions that y'all use to educate the people that are retiring with you, and can you get me a copy of that, please?
Yes, we can. And this is an evolving issue. As I said, the law just changed, and the Social Security Administration is promulgating rules, and the most recent information we have from them, we share with our members. But
Okay.
For those who may have members affected, I know this wasn't a question to ask, but just for your information, if you were affected by and it's called the GPO or the WEP issue, if you were negatively affected by either, the Social Security Administration is planning, according to them, to start making payments in their April checks. Now, there was also a provision in the law that passed that there's a retroactive nature to this, that they get a full year's worth of payments dating back to January of 2024. So they will receive that one-time payment in April as well.
Okay. So now I'm going to ask my most difficult question.
Okay.
I've spent my entire life paying taxes and watching government and watching all kinds of governments do different things. And honestly, I've never seen any government entity as a whole be a good manager of money. And you're telling us that half of our funds are now managed by internal managers, which managers make a lot of money. I mean, managers for Vanguard, managers for these funds, most of them are on incentive-based systems where they get paid a lot of money. So your best managers, the best managers in the world, are out there trying to capitalize on their knowledge and experience.
Yes.
So my question to you is do you think it's why do you and I guess I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit. It's interesting. It's a challenge to you to say, is it really wise to have government employees managing money when we've got the best managers in the world that we can interview and they're all beating down our door to come manage, and we have the size capability to negotiate the lowest fees in the world? Is it all? Have you seen the efficiencies of government anywhere else that's this efficient?
So as I said at the top, we're somewhat unique in that we can pay our managers in a competitive salary so that we get really good managers. And in some cases, I would argue we have the best managers. There's a quality of life issue to working in Austin that's appealing. And there's also the mission, which is also very appealing to the individuals that we employ. We provide incentive compensation for those individuals, just like the private sector. It's not to the same degree as you would receive in the private sector. But we believe that we have fair, competitive compensation. And based upon the cost-benefit analysis, even if it's the best manager in the world and we have most favored nation clauses, they still charge us fees on those investments, and they charge us carry on those investments. And when you add all that up, we, in many cases, can deliver that better by having someone in-house providing that same benefit. That's the cost-value decision, cost-benefit decision that we made when we built the fleet. We didn't do it in every case, because there are some cases where we recognize we're not going to be able to do it as good as you guys, so we're just going to work with you. But in other cases, we saw what they did, we worked with them for a period of time, we said, you know what? We can do this ourselves. And that has borne fruit. We believe that we deliver alpha as a result of that.
Okay, thank you.
I got, hold on, Representative Olcott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a follow-up question for Representative Kane in regarding the buildings.
Yes, sir.
I'm a freshman, just moved down here, and I was kind of shocked. I knew Austin real estate was expensive, but it's like, for at least residential, like more than 900 square foot. What is the current commercial rate for building a building or occupying a building down here, would you say?
So I don't have the rate. I will tell you, as I said, the buildings are approximately 350,000 square feet, 400,000 square feet, I think, total when you build everything out. The total cost for those buildings is $340 million. We sold our headquarters in downtown Austin for $108 million. Prior to the market crashing, we sold it at the slight height of the market. And in addition to that, we're avoiding now about $8 million in lease costs that we were paying before to house our staff outside of our headquarters.
So it sounds like it's consistent with residents. It's like around, what you just described sounds like about $1,000 per square foot. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of liked even the city that Representative Kane, Waco, it's like a little more than an hour away. If you were to build a building there or lease a building there, wouldn't that be substantially less than what it is in Austin? Is it really necessary for y'all to be here in Austin? I'm sure that it's necessary for some of y'all, but I would say for the bulk of y'all, what would be the objection of actually, finding another location like in Waco? And I would love to know what that cost would be, because I bet you it would be probably half that cost. And one reason I'm asking is when I was out in the campaign trail, I met a lot of retired teachers that were complaining like they hadn't had a increase in their benefits for more than 20 years, is what I was told. And I think this last session, they finally got one. Was that true?
Yes, they did.
But I would have to imagine they're still concerned about how much money they're getting in retirement. And I would think that they would be a little concerned or bothered by the fact that they knew that there was a much more fiscally responsible way for where y'all occupied and had your office. And so is it too late to even consider something like that?
Well, we have purchased the buildings, and as I said, we're about to move into them. So I would say at this point, yes.
Okay. One other quick question. So I was provided some numbers. I know foreign travel's come up a couple times. Does this sound reasonable that in this most recent fiscal year, it was, and I'm not sure if this is a budgeted number for this current cycle or for the last cycle, 430,000. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, that matches the numbers that I have, and that
Okay,
was
you-
for the last cycle, not the upcoming cycle.
So since you're the one signing off on that, do you know like how many trips was involved in that? How many foreign trips that came up to 430,000?
I don't have the precise number. I will say that there's seasons for this. There's a lot of due diligence that occurs in the early months of the year. Probably all total, I would say maybe 100 trips, maybe 200 trips.
100 trips
Yeah.
in 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would also say that also includes other trips around the country as well. I mean, we have
Okay,
international
well,
trips.
Well,
and-
I've got two different numbers here. For foreign travel, it's 430,000. For out-of-state travel, I have 1.4 million.
Sure.
So that's around 1.85 million dollars for travel. So, would you be kind enough to send my office the information on the number of trips for foreign
Absolutely.
travel and maybe the number of trips for out-of-state travel?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Representative Alders. And then
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your testimony here. I want to go back to the employee question that Representative Kane had introduced earlier. How many employees do y'all have at TRS?
We have about 1,200 employees total.
Okay. And you said the policy or the average is somewhere around 50 to 75% of those employees are working from home currently?
At least 1 or 2 days a week, yes.
Do you imagine that if those employees were not working from home but were in the office, that y'all could operate more efficiently?
So we have not seen a dip in operating efficiency with having those employees have a day or two being able to work from home. But we recognize that the trend is to return to the office, and we would be able to do that with one significant exception. Post-COVID, we learned that it was much more efficient to actually deliver telephone counseling services from home.
Sure.
We also found that we could employ statewide for telephone counselors. Finding them in Austin is nearly impossible, given the marketplace. But if you being able to offer that to individuals outside of the Austin area has been tremendously beneficial for us, and that's why we have the customer service levels that we do. And so, I would, if I was told today, return to the office 5 days a week, we would be welcome. Well, we would do that with open arms. That being said, I would much like to prefer to have my telephone counselors stay at home.
How many of your employees are those telephone counselors?
So that's about 300 people.
Okay, so you're looking at a fifth.
And
or
that's also
something.
some processors as well. They do more than, yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that's a great idea. It's great that they're not here in Austin. I think the concentration of employees in Austin is, as has been mentioned,
Yes.
is a problem and something we want to disperse throughout the state. And I think that's an appropriate use of working from home. Do y'all have plans then to implement the policy for those who are in Austin to bring them back in the office? Do you?
So it has been an easing in process. I'll be honest. There was a built-in expectation, I think, from employees that once they had that benefit, that was not going away. We're now in a position, particularly for our investment folks. They're required to be in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There's also an all-staff meeting on Monday. So basically, they have the option, if they like, to work from home on a Friday. Most of them don't take advantage of that. Same with most of the other professionals in the agency. We have a 3-2 option, meaning 3 days in the office, 2 days at home. Most people are in the office more than that. And so I think that we are reaching a point where being able to pull the plug on that, if you will, would not be as problematic as it perhaps even 2 years ago.
Sure. Thank you.
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to circle back around to Representative Ramos's question. You mentioned that there was a 1% increase on teacher enrollment. And my question to you is, do you know how much of the enrollment is from charter schools versus public schools?
I don't have that percentage in front of me, ma'am, but I can certainly get that for you.
Okay, great. Do you think with the explosive growth in charter schools, do you think it would be safe to assume that a lot of that growth is coming from that?
I don't want to hazard a guess
Sure.
because some charter schools are associated with the district itself, and so it becomes commingled, and it's kind of hard to split out exactly where the student is sitting.
Great, yeah, I'll wait on that
Okay.
response. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Members, are there any other